anytime and anywhere you can hear this lady crooning, and the auto horn can go down the avenue. What an auto horn can, like Betty Boop can do. Made of pen and ink, she can win you with a wink. Ain't she cute? Sweet Betty.
Gentlemen, to the left, we have the largest vendor show, and to the right, we have the largest and the best. To the left, we have the whole big bears. To the right, to the left, right, left, right, left, right.
Now, will someone let me have a handkerchief?
Here you are.
See, watch very carefully. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you. Come on, folks, step up and get an eyeful right here.
Sorry about the sound on that one, but that was out of my control. Hopefully they did. They made it a lower for you. Just bear with me while I turn it off. Right. Now it's got itself in a loop. We don't want this again. Right. Back on track. I think. Right, we're there. Told you Tutankhamun follows me everywhere I go. He's not let me do this last lecture without any problems. When going about your daily routine, do you ever stop and think, who invented this? Where did they come from? These everyday products that we use. But you might be surprised to learn that a lot of these everyday items that we still use in our everyday life was invented by ancient civilizations over a millennium ago. When we think of the ancient Egyptians, we think of the sphinxes, the pyramids, King Tut. But they didn't just create spectacular monuments, as you will find out. They invented some of the everyday items that we take for granted in modern times. So we're going to have a light-hearted look at some of the ancient inventions through history that we still use in some form today. Cuneiform. It's one of the oldest known writing forms. This particular one at the top is known as the Sumerian cuneiform from southern Iraq. It emerged from the 30th century BC, and it was used simply to write the Sumerian language. This is when they've deciphered, and this is the alphabet at the bottom. But they were important documents. Eventually, it moved to areas such as the Middle East and over to Egypt. The tablet on the right-hand side is actually from Tel El Amarna, and it tells the story from the king of Tushratta to Amenhotep III, which is Akhenaten. He's sending him a statue of the goddess Ishtar. Now, this is the most famous one that's been found, and a gentleman in the British Museum, as you can see when you read the side. And this is from the Assyrian king Ashur-bel-Nipal, and he reigned from 669 to 631 BC. He had a collection of cuneiform tablets in his palace at Nineveh. It included letters, legal texts, lists of peoples, animals, goods, and a wealth of scientific information and myths and legends. This is now in the British Museum, and when it was deciphered, as you can see, George Smith, an assistant, threw all of his clothes and stood up and started shouting. Does anybody know what this is? The Rosetta Stone. It's in the British Museum, but what is it? It was found in 1799 by Napoleon's soldiers in the little town of Rosetta, in a little place called Rashid in northern Egypt. And it's a slab of black rock, and it's carved in 3 scripts: hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek. Excuse me. And because of this, this is how we can read hieroglyphs in this day and age. These 2 gentlemen are responsible. On the left, we have Sir Thomas Young from the British Museum. On the right, we have Jean-Francois Champollion, who was born in Figa in France. And he's the one that gets the most noteworthiness of deciphering the hieroglyphs. You can see on the bottom right, that is where he's buried, back in Figa in France. Thomas Young, he was one of the first to attempt decipherment of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. He failed to fully decipher the scripts, but he was managed to translate some of the text on the stone, which led the way for Champollion to begin his own investigations. And where does the name cartouche come from? It comes from a bullet on the right-hand side, as you can see. And this is where the name cartouche, it's a French name for a bullet. And it's in that shape. Only royalty would have had this. We all buy cartouches with our names in hieroglyphs in this day and age. You can see again, that's Tutankhamun's lid off his favourite box. It's enabled us to read all the dynasties from the Temple of Seti and Abydos. We were able to tell all the pharaohs through all the dynasties bar the 18th. So it was a very, very important thing. How did Champollion decipher it? He finally published the first correct translation of hieroglyphs and the key to the Egyptian grammatical system. Egyptian writing system is a combination of phonetic and ideographic signs. Nobody knows what the Egyptian language sounded like, but we do know we have all these carvings and engravings when you go into the tombs. But what did they all mean? The cartouche that you see there is Cleopatra's. They didn't use vowels in ancient Egypt. You include the vowels to make sense of your name in this day and age. But why was it in 3 different scripts? What was it? And they were the 3 scripts that were being used for important or religious documents. And there's a total of over 700 hieroglyphic signs. The right-hand side, this is the alphabet that I actually studied from. This is the true Egyptian alphabet. The ones you get on a little card make it easier for you to read. As you can see, at the top, we have the Ptolemy dynasty. And at the bottom again, we have Cleopatra's cartouche. And it's because of these 2 names that Champollion managed to decipher the hieroglyphs. He went on to go to Egypt. He studied in the temples, came back, and he actually deciphered the world of the hieroglyphs. But why did we have all these things? The ancient language was written by scribes from a young age. That's how we know what we know about ancient Egypt, the same as we know about Hitler. Everything was recorded from day one. They needed to know how many people they had to feed on the building of the tombs, the temples, and the pyramids, how many blocks they would need, how long it would take, etc. It was a very top job, and it was passed down from grandfather to father to son. The boys went to school, and it was a very long apprenticeship. They usually started about the age of 5, but it was one of the top jobs. The right-hand side, the fatter you were, the wealthier you were. The left-hand side is the hieroglyph for a scribe. If you go in a tomb and you see those 2, you will know that he was the scribe. Discipline in these schools were very, very strict, and some tutors resorted to the stick. And the root of the word teach, sibar, also means beat. So if they didn't do it correctly, they were beaten with a stick. These are some of the writing implements, a scribe's equipment. Those in the bottom left are in the Louvre, and they were out of Tutankhamun's tomb. as you would see, they'd have a leather bag, they'd have 2 little pallets, and it would have 2 cakes of ink, usually red and black. And they would have reed brushes. Now these are on the side of the statue of Ramesses II outside Luxor Temple. And that is Thoth on the left-hand side, who is the god of writing. On the right is his wife, and that's Seshet. She's the goddess of writing. When the pharaoh was deceased and they went through to be taken onto the Assyrian fields or the paradise, he would go before Thoth, and Thoth would record all his deeds, whether he'd been good, bad, he'd taken the neighbour's wife, whatever. It was recorded before he was taken to Osiris. So he was the official scribe of the pharaoh. Again, you can see Tutankhamun's box. But why did they need hieroglyphs? Because obviously in the afterlife, they needed to know who it was. When he was reborn again, the pharaoh, they needed to know who he was, what his titles were, what land he owned, and all these other things. But of course then, we go on to papyri, and it's the ancient world's version of paper that we have today. And in fact, papyri is the root of the word paper, and it was grown along the Nile. The Nile flooded 3 times a year, and it left behind this marvellous black silt, which is the most fertile silt in the world. When you go on coach tours, you go and see papyrus being made in a lot of these factories, and on the top left hand, you will see the papyrus with the colours on it. All these paintings when you go to papyri shop. They're very durable. It was rolled up, it was very strong, and it was very easy to carry. But they needed something to write with, apart from the cakes that the scribes had. And this is a piece of ostraca on the right-hand side. And you can see this black ink is still in perfect condition. On the left-hand side, this is a piece of Greek papyri that's been found with the Greek writing. Now, this was made out of animal hide. But as you can see, it's still legible today. Does anybody know what this is? No. It's called a shadoof, and it was the first form of irrigation in ancient Egypt. When you go on a Nile cruise, you will actually see this still in use, and they still irrigate the fields using this method. Top right-hand side, you can see it being where it's decorated in one of the nobles' tombs. And on the bottom right, this picture goes back to 1920, and it's still in use. So it's the first form of water irrigation. Anybody idea what this is? Think outside the box. Sorry? Anyone else? It's not as complicated as that. No? It's a knotted rope. But what was it used for? It was an Egyptian square tool. And what happened, they would measure the farmers' fields to see how much crops they had, etc., to be able to pay the pharaoh. And that's all that it was used for. Each knot represented an acre. So they could tell how many fields the farmer had. You can see in this one, they're making rope. Of course, they'd need rope in the day and age when they build the boats to sail. So the rope had to be quite strong. They needed to hoist these statues that you see, 60-foot statues of Ramesses and all the other pharaohs. And this is actually 4,000 years old, this particular rope. And it was found next to the Great Pyramid. They found a boat pit. And when they opened it, inside, flat-packed in 1,224 pieces, was a solar boat of Khufu. Each piece was marked. It took 10 years to rebuild this boat, and it's the original boat. All that was replaced was the rope. The actual rope that was with it is in a glass case. And it's right at the back of the pyramid, but nobody ever goes to visit it. And it's a fantastic feat of engineering. Have you all cleaned your teeth today? I hope you have. Thank the ancient Egyptians for toothpaste. Colgate began marketing the first commercial brand in 1873 based on a papyri that was found in Heliopolis. There was 300 pieces of papyri found in a rubbish dump. They ended up in a Vienne museum basement. And on a faded piece of this papyri, a scribe had carefully written what he calls a powder for clean teeth. When it was mixed with the saliva in the mouth, it formed a toothpaste. And life was hard on teeth back in ancient Egypt. You can imagine all the sand that got in the food and when they ate it. But the Egyptians sure tried their best when it came to oral health. They discovered toothpicks in some of the tombs. And an Australian dentist actually tried this recipe. And what it is, it's iris, mint, and rock salt. It's ground together and made into a paste. It's just a pity they didn't invent toothbrushes. But obviously this Australian dentist tried it, and he said after a couple of days, he did actually notice a slight difference. So much so that now Colgate actually use the iris flower in toothpaste as it's very effective in fighting gum disease. But if you didn't clean your teeth, this is what would happen. The Indus Valley civilization, this was found in a tomb as far back as 2000 BC. They were curing toothache with the drill of a bead maker. There was no anaesthetic, there was nothing else, it was just a bead maker's implement. And failing that, this was the next step. If you lost your teeth, the Etruscans were the first to make dentures and false teeth. And from 700 BC onwards, teeth came from a dead person or from an animal such as an ox. They were inserted into bands of gold on the left-hand side with metal pins and fitted onto the remaining teeth. Only wealthy people could afford this. Napoleon and his men, when they went round the battlefields, they would remove the teeth of the soldiers and sell them to make dentures. As you can see on the right-hand side, that's the next step. So they must have been pretty uncomfortable. But of course, Elizabeth I, Henry III of France, George Washington, all had false teeth. These particular teeth belong to a very famous person, Winston Churchill. They were specially designed because, as you know, he had a lisp. And they were specially designed for Winston Churchill. And a few years ago, they went for £15,000 at an auction. So if you've got some false teeth, hang on to them, because you never know, one day they might be worth something. Ladies, we all know this. Cold crayon. Tutankhamun. Everybody in ancient Egypt wore this. It was like a protection. The same as the American footballers, they put on the nose and their eyes to protect them from the sun, because you know how hot it is out in Egypt. So this was designed for this eyeliner to protect their eyes. No matter who they were, boy, girl, pharaoh, peasant, everybody wore cold crayon. If you could afford it, you had somebody to do it for you. If you couldn't, you did it yourself. And we still use it today. The far right-hand side is a mirror and a razor. Now, these were found in a priest's tomb in the 18th dynasty during the reign of Thutmose and Hatshepsut. Priests, before they could enter the temples, had to be shaven from head to toe. They had to be absolutely clean. They would go in the sacred lake at Karnak and then shave themselves and enter the temples. You can imagine how it would have been really bad trying to shave your head with that item. The ladies of ancient Egypt, you see the makeup, there's a comb and a pin. The box on the far right-hand side is the makeup box of Tutankhamun. The blue tube at the bottom contained kohl cream still in there from Tutankhamun's tomb. Wigs, they had shaven heads. It was made of human hair or animal hair. Men and women would wear a new wig every day of their lives. If you were wealthy, you could have a decorated one on the far right. On the left, if you were a peasant, that was the only one you could afford. Now, the only two, you can see the lady on the right, you can actually still see the curls on her head. And the left one is our Mosi Nefertari I showed you when I did the mummies. She's actually still got all her braids. And of course, they wanted to look right in the afterlife, so they had to have these things. This is what the wealthy Cleopatra would have worn, something like this. On the far right at the top, these are hair extensions from the tomb of Princess Ahmose from the 17th dynasty. You've a comb at the bottom as a pair of scissors. And at the far right, you've got like a hairpin. These wigs were actually found in the reign of Thutmose III, and they're from a tomb of one of his minor wives. This one on the left is in gold, and it's covered in glass. Even the box was found, and it was in a perfect state of condition. The flip-flops I showed you, there were 93 pairs found in the tomb. This is one of the most famous pairs of Tutankhamun. But what's different to what we were today? Exactly the same. They also found in some of the tombs pictures of shoes with wedges on. Anybody remember the film The Mummy? The latest one. Imhotep was the monster in the movie. This gentleman is Imhotep. He's the world's first architect. He designed the step pyramid out in Saqqara for the 4th dynasty pharaoh Djoser. Very, very clever man. He was also a doctor and a priest. And they have, in the Cairo University Hospital, they have a skull. And they have a papyri. This gentleman performed the world's first brain surgery on this gentleman. You can see the hole in the skull. The papyri actually tells you how it was done. The gentleman actually lived for about 18 months after this particular operation. Top right-hand side, out in Komombo, they unearthed a tomb, and it was full of doctor's equipment. This is a wall at Komombo with all the medical instruments. And a lot of these instruments that we still use today, only in a more modern idea. They were the knives that would have been used, the flint knives. And the principle of wound closure has changed little over 4,000 years. They used animal gut. They use cat gut today to stitch up people. Those knives would have been used. The top left is Bez. It's a goddess. And it's a medicine bottle. And she was the goddess of medicine. This jar of honey goes back 4,000 years. It was found in a tomb, and it was still in good condition. We know that we use honey today for medicinal purposes. If you've got a sore throat, you will take honey and lemon. It was also used in mummification practices. Prosthetics. This was found on a female mummy of about 50 years old. They think she had diabetes. Excuse me. And you can see it's made of wood. And it's actually been well worn where she's actually walked on it. I'm not going to say what this is. Obviously, you all know. But thank the Egyptians again. This, again, would have been for a priest because he had to be clean. This was animal skin, and it was found in a priest's tomb. He would have had to worn this before he actually went into the temple again to be perfectly clean. The wedding ring. The tradition of wearing engagement and wedding rings on the third finger of the left hand dates back to ancient Egypt. The circle of the band represents eternity. The ring finger contains the vena amoris, the vein of love which runs directly to the heart. You can see that's a very old one. The right-hand side, it's Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and at the top is the one that was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. On the right-hand side is one that I actually own, and I've had for many, many years. Any ideas? Yeah? Toilet. It's on the second floor of the Cairo Museum. Tut would have probably sat on it because it was found at Tel El Amarna. And of course, as I told you, that's where Tut was born and raised, in Tel El Amarna, at Artatartan. If they wanted to go to the loo, they would have a boy come along with a box. They'd do what they had to do. The boy would then run away and empty whatever it was in the box. And this was the actual toilet that was found. They didn't have watches. They didn't have phones that you could check every 5 minutes to see the time. But it's down to them that we do have a part of this luxury. They weren't the only ones to induce it, but they were one of the first. They formally divided the day into hours with a sun clock, known as an obelisk. As the sun came, they could find out the hours of the day and the night as the sun comes around the obelisk. And this was the next step. It's a water clock. And this was invented by an Egyptian court official named Amen-em-het. Water would be placed in the bowl of a morning. It had holes in the grooves, and gradually throughout the day, the water would seep out. And as the water level changed, they could tell the times. Now, the earliest one found of this is an actual impression of it, was found in the tomb of Ahmose I. The calendar, again, this is from Komombo. It contained 365 days divided into 12 months, each day exactly 30. The remaining 5 days were known as additional days and were voted to festivals because they say the state gods of Egypt were thought to have been born on these days. The months were then grouped into seasons pertaining to the flooding of the Nile, the inundation. Each day was further divided into 24 hours. As you can see, the Nile there has flooded. It's come right up to the pyramids. So they relied on these things. They needed this for the timing. Horoscopes. The one on the left-hand side is the original, which is in the Louvre. The one on the right-hand side is a replica, and it's on the ceiling of the Temple of Dendera. The star signs are represented by gods and goddesses, very similar to what we have now, our horoscopes, Gemini, Pisces, Capricorn, and all those. They are very, very similar. If you go on the internet and have a look, you will find out what your birth star is by the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. Numbering system. They needed numbers. They needed to know exactly how to build these pyramids. How many blocks, how many workers, how many to be fed, all this kind of thing. And this is the numbering system that they actually came up with, as you can see. At the bottom, fractions. Again, these were symbols. They didn't have a symbol for a zero. This is where you get your medicinal measures from. This is from the Eye of Horus. Horus lost his eye in a fight with his brother, which is too complicated, I won't go into. And this is the eye that he lost. And when you take 5 mil, 10 mil, whatever, this is where it originates from. Wine. You can see the tombs on the right-hand side where they're growing the grapes. There's a tomb in the Valley of the Nobles, and you can actually see the whole ceiling is just decorated with grapevines. It's only a small tomb, and it's called Nacht, and it's a tomb of Nacht, and it's absolutely beautiful. Tut's favourite wine was red, and how do they know? They found the vessels in his tomb with his cartouche and the marking of what it was. On the right-hand side, this was found in Tel El Amarna, in the kitchens of Queen Nefertiti. Egypt Exploration Society and Scottish and Newcastle breweries had this deciphered, and it was a recipe for brewing ale. And this bottle of ale, Tut's Ale, is the most expensive bottle of ale in the world. It's $182 a bottle. And they had enough to make 500 of these bottles. Measuring equipment, that's a plumb bob. They needed these things, again, to get the line straight for the perfect square of the pyramids. The measuring tools. They worked in cubics, and the Oxford Dictionary says a cubit measures from the tips of your fingers to your elbow. Depending on your grades in high school, You might actually want to thank the Egyptians for this, but they did help to shape modern mathematics. We use maths all the time, no matter how much we despise it. The Egyptians actually created an instruction manual for geometry that gave demonstrations for division and multiplication. It was produced in 1650, and it's called the Rhind Papyri, because it was discovered by a gentleman called Henry Rhind in the 19th century. It contained 84 mathematical problems and solutions, including how to distribute bread amongst a workforce. Locks. These are very early locks. You can thank them for not people breaking into your house and stealing your toothpaste and your mints. The oldest door lock is 4,000 years old, and it was discovered in one of the Egyptian palaces at Malkata. The first example were wooden bolts that had slots containing holes for pegs, and eventually would lead to this one. And this is a system that we all know and we use today. Easter eggs. Decorated ostrich eggs in gold and silver were commonly placed in graves of ancient Egyptians over 4,500 years ago. The custom of the Easter egg originated before Christianity in the celebration of Shemu, and it's a day that followed Easter Sunday, which is the season of harvest and rebirth. They wrote their wishes on painted eggs. They would put them on the windows and the trees to receive the blessings of the first rays of the morning light produced by the sun god Ra. China. We know porcelain comes from China, one of the most prolific inventions of all time. We call it China or porcelain, and it was invented during the Sui dynasty, and it was perfected during the Tang dynasty in 618 to 906. Chinese porcelain was highly prized throughout the world. Toilet paper. The first recorded accounts of using hygienic paper was in the Sui dynasty in 589 AD. And when I was researching this, one odd piece of trivia I picked up is that the Romans supposedly used a sponge tied to the end of a stick, which may have been the origin of the expression to grab the wrong end of the stick. Clocks. Again, you can see this is the first mechanical clock, back in 725 AD by a Buddhist monk. He was the first one to invent this. The wheels would turn and the same speed as the earth. Anybody know what this is? The ship needs one. A compass. Again, a Chinese invention. It's called lodestone. And it indicates direction. Like the spoon spins in the middle and points to either north, south, east, or west. So this is the very first form of a compass. Of course, they also invented gunpowder. We can't accurately predict earthquakes, and this is a 2,000-year-old earthquake detector. You can see all around the bottom are toads. If there was an earthquake about to happen, the dragons, little balls would come rolling down and they would drop it into the mouths of the toads. And depending on how many dropped is how they could tell an indication of how bad it was and the direction of its origin. Umbrellas, 21 AD. Wang Mang had one designed for ceremonial four-wheeled carriage. The banknote began in the Tang dynasty. Vending machines. Again, this was done by Hero of Alexandria. People would go into church, they wanted to get holy water, they would put the coin in, and it would drop the holy water down. Showers. These have been documented on vases for females at the Olympic Games. Catapults. The earliest representation of the crossbow dates back to 400 BC in China. And by 209 BC, the Chinese army had over 50,000 crossbowmen who fought with these mass-produced weapons. The Baghdad battery, apparently, I believe it's been stolen. I'm not quite sure, I heard somebody say. This was found, it's about 2,000 years old, and it was found in a village near Baghdad, and it's 6 inches high. And it's a cylinder of sheet copper, and when it was filled with vinegar or another electrolytic solution, it produced about 1 volt. There's no written record as to what its exact function was. But the best guess is, as they've called it, the Baghdad battery. Roman baths, these are at Karnak, Luxor. They've been found with all the trenches where they would have gone for the baths. These are to the left-hand side of Karnak as you go through. This was a find they didn't expect. It was hidden away in an Australian castle. 4 600-year-old linen bras, and it's a find they weren't expecting to make.
Good day to you.
Oh, hello.
I'm your new neighbour. I've just moved into the next cave.
Oh, yes. Oh, we were going to take that one once, but we didn't like the idea of the constant running water.
Oh, isn't it an advantage?
Well, not when it's running through the roof.
Excuse me, but I was just admiring that thing you're making.
Oh.
It's very good.
Thank you.
What is it?
Oh, it's a wheel. Yes, it's for going on a cart.
Oh, where I come from, they have things to go on carts, but, well, they're sort of round, like that.
Oh, yes. I know all about those. But the trouble with them is, you see, that if you stop on a hill, they start to roll backwards. Now, this one won't, you see.
But will it roll forwards?
Well, obviously, of course. I mean, if you can't roll backwards, there's only one way left for it to go, isn't there?
How much do you want for your wheel?
Oh, I don't know. I've never saw one before. People don't like new ideas, you know.
I'll have it.
What, just a one? Well, what good would that be?
I'll show you.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing? Look, they support the rim. It'll be no good without them.
Watch.
Hey.
There we are. Makes a perfect frame.
Oh, so it does, yes. But what's that square opening in the middle for?
Oh, it's just an idea I had for letting in more light. I thought I'd call it a window.
A window. Oh, we can call that a window rim.
Yeah. What about window frame?
Oh, well, if you like, it's all the same.
The wheel. It's probably the most important mechanical invention of all time. The earliest known use of this invention was a potter's wheel that was found in an Egyptian tomb. The earliest wheels that we know of would have been this Sumerian one. And you can see it's on the wooden carriage and the wooden wheels, and it dates back 3,500 years. And it was used for transportation, for carts and chariots in those days. But don't forget, they had no industrial or manufacturing applications before they were used on actual vehicles. The first spoke wheels were on Tutankhamun's Ferrari. And they're the very first spoke wheels that you can see when he would have gone out hunting to knock the other chariots off the route. But this is the next thing. Modern-day scientists are still trying to invent this square-wheeled bike. But will it work? Can you ride a bike with square wheels? You can if you carry the road with you. And this is actually one that the scientists have come up with. And this is the new state-of-the-art square-wheeled bike. But of course you needed roads. You couldn't have wheeled vehicles without roads. As you can see, they're not enough to travel in comfort. The first constructed roads appeared in China. And there were some 5,000 miles of road had been constructed. The first emperor of China had a 9-lane highway. Woe betide, if you were found in the middle lane, you would be executed, because that was purely for him. The Appian Way. The Roman army depended for the success on the use of these bases, in which to prepare for retreat and to refresh and re-equip the soldiers later. These bases allowed the Romans to keep numbers of soldiers in the field waiting for the opportunity to strike. But they need to be connected by good roadways. And this was built in the mid-4th century, and it's the Appian Way. It's the first long road built to transport troops outside the smaller regions of Greater Rome. This is an old Roman map. I used to live in Isca, the old Roman town in South Wales. Most of you will probably recognise, if you're from Britain, what places on this map is where you actually live today. The oldest Roman road in Britain is the A46 from Leicester to Lincoln and the A5 from St Albans to Wales. But I hope you found this interesting. I've just got a couple more to do. But if you've any bright ideas, if you've any inventions, don't disregard them. Because who knows, in 4,000 years' time, somebody could be on a space cruiser in the sky talking about your inventions. So it's worth keep going. The clip you saw with the window frame, of course, it became a multi-billion-dollar industry. We all know it. We all have double glazing. We all have these window frames. And, of course, the first disco dance in history. And the latest invention is this. You want to put your cat in it or your dog in it, you can take it with you when you go. But just before I go, I'd like to say thank you. I hope you found these lectures interesting and informative. I would like to thank Fiona for looking after me so well. Nothing was too much trouble for her. The people in the sound booth to make sure that Tutankhamun didn't get too much of his own way. And obviously, you people. Without you, I wouldn't be here. So thank you for coming. You've made me feel so welcome. Please, if you're staying on for the next cruise, enjoy it. If you're travelling home, have a fantastic journey. And if you've enjoyed these, tell the cruise director. If not, please tell me. So all I can say to you all is thank you.